Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today I caught my Karen sister trying to steal from me. I, 27 female, and my sister, 30 female, have a really strained relationship. I'm very low contact with her, and she only contacts me either to get money or to ask me to buy stuff for her kids. Me and my husband are very well off, and we own a business together. So over time, with some of my fun money, I've bought designer handbags, and soon enough, I had a collection. So when we bought our house, I made a space in my closet to keep all of them in. Now, recently, me and my husband just announced our pregnancy, and we threw a party, so we messaged family to come over and celebrate with us. My sister came, and she looked around a lot for some reason, so since I was suspicious, I made sure to watch her moves. Soon, she started making her way upstairs, and I told my husband to tell people that I was using the bathroom, and I signaled him, showing him my sister going upstairs. So I went to go see what she was doing, and I tried to lay low about it. I saw her look around a few rooms, then she went into my room, and she found my handbag collection and looked around a bit, and took 3 and stuffed them in her duffel bag. I forgot to mention, but I should have been suspicious by how awkwardly big it was, but I assumed it was for her 2 kids' stuff. She took like 3 of them, which were really expensive ones, my Birkin, Chanel, and Youre bags. I screamed, "What do you think you're doing?" And she dropped the bag and starts saying, "Why are you following me?" And I tell her clearly, "Because you're trying to steal my bags." And she just starts saying how I don't need all these bags and I shouldn't be so selfish. I told her I'd be happy to give her my old bags, but not these because I enjoy collecting them. I'm sorry if I sound snobby. Soon enough, she goes down the stairs crying unnecessarily loud, and so a few people follow her asking what's wrong. And she said basically the whole thing that happened upstairs, and they all started scolding her. But my mom and dad are taking her side, and it really hurt me. So now I'm wondering if I'm the jerk. Not the jerk. Might be a good idea to install cameras though, and obviously do not invite your sister over anymore. You caught theft. Good for you for acting on instinct. If she does this again, please escalate this to the police. Doesn't matter if she's your sister. Not the jerk. I broke my son and his girlfriend up, and he doesn't even know it was me. I, female 49, broke my son and his girlfriend up. They had been dating for almost a year and seemed very happy. For backstory, my son, who's 19, moved out pretty soon after his biological father passed. He told me he wanted to expand on life because he was nervous he would waste it away being depressed over the passing of someone so important to him. I understood completely and allowed him space and freedom. But we talked daily and he visited all the time. After a while of living alone, he moved back. It was around this time that he introduced me to Kaylee, fake name. Me and Kaylee got along immediately. She lacked a mother in her life, and I think she was quick to establish that relationship with me. Off the bat, I noticed she was extremely paranoid and had extreme trust issues, but she wasn't toxic or manipulative, just anxious about where my son was going after work. She'd ask me, and I'd answer with, "He went to his friend Mike's house. They hang out to play PlayStation with each other." We both genuinely believed that my son was at Mike's house, and we had no reason to suspect he wasn't. One night after my son came home to pick up his PS4 to hang out with Mike, Kaylee asked me to pick up some tampons and Tylenol for her. She lived close, and her periods were always super intense, so I was used to going out late into the night to help her. My son gets out of work at 4 and is usually home or at Kaylee's place by 5:30, 6 at the latest. It was 6 and he hadn't swung by to drop off his PS4, so I shot him a text before I left the house to let him know why I was gone. It was something like, "Hey, Kaylee is on her period, so I'm heading out to grab supplies. You okay?" He answered me while I was driving, and I checked it when I got to the store. It was something like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Mike needed help building a shelf he bought, so I'm staying a little later." I sent back some messages saying okay, be safe, all of that mother stuff. But I was not ready to see Mike working the cash register, smiling at me as soon as I walked in. I hadn't forgotten he worked here, but obviously figured it was his day off. I smiled back, but immediately I felt sick to my stomach. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he means he's building it for Mike while he works. I couldn't even think straight. I just got the tampons, some snacks, and Tylenol for Kaylee and went to the register. Mike obviously started small talk with me, paraphrasing because my memory is bad, but it went something like this. "Hi, Mrs. OP. Hello, Mike. How are you doing?" "I'm all right, getting some supplies for my son's girlfriend." I remember he laughed. "Speaking of your son, I haven't seen him in a few weeks. I need him to return my PS4 controller that he borrowed. Can you tell him that?" I felt sick again. I didn't want to put my son on the spotlight, so I didn't mention the stories my son had been feeding me. I just smiled and said, I'll let him know. I paid for my stuff and I left quickly. I drove to Kaylee's house and gave her the supplies, but I didn't know what to say or how to say it. She was smiling and laughing and looked carefree. She asked me where my son was. I couldn't lie to her. I couldn't. So I answered honestly, I don't know. I didn't know where he was or who he was with. I just told her to call him and ask. She thanked me and I left her house. Later that night at around 8 p.m., my son finally came home. I didn't say much to him, just asked him if he had fun. He said yeah and went to his room. I knew I had to tell Kaylee. Soon after, I went into my room and I called her. I informed her of what Mike had said and how late he had gotten home. She told me that he said he was home hours ago, just tired so he wasn't going to visit. I could tell she was crying and I asked her if she wanted me to come over. I went to her house and we talked about everything, and she told me she didn't want anything to do with him and wanted to break up with him immediately. I told her she could, and if she wanted, we could be honest and say I told her. After I comforted her for a few hours, she asked if she could still contact me, even if she wasn't with my son. I said yes, but honestly, I'm hesitant about it. I love her, but it feels off to me. I would still help her though. Fast forward a few days, and my son comes crying to me that Kaylee broke up with him and isn't giving him any reason. I, of course, comfort him too. He said that she needed time to think about it and would tell him why when she knows what to say. But for now, she is supposedly speechless. I was too, so I don't blame her. He cried for hours in his room and in my arms, and regardless of what he did, of what I did, I comforted him. I want to tell him what I know, and I feel bad that he doesn't know. But Kaylee didn't tell him anything yet, so I might wait. Honestly, I feel so stuck. This isn't about cheating, even though I think he is. This is about trust and how he's lying to me and his girlfriend. We both know there is a possibility he isn't cheating, but he shouldn't have to lie if he has nothing to hide. I just want to add a few things. I agree I should have spoken to my son about it first, but I was too emotional and I felt betrayed. I won't disclose anything, but my son is probably mentally ill, and I've tried to get him therapy his whole life, but we ran into so many issues such as money and him not enjoying his therapist. I'm going to discuss therapy now that I am financially stable, and I can support him in that. The next update will be the last. I appreciate everyone who's commented on this. Lastly, I'm not okay with my son cheating. I may have worded it wrong, but that's because I'm biting my tongue when it comes to expressing how mad, sad, and just grossed out I am. I truly don't think he realizes how much this hurts people, and I want him to be into therapy for that too. Since he was little, he's always hurt people's feelings and never understood how it could have hurt them. I will absolutely stay in Kaylee's life. I just hope that it won't cause any drama moving forward, and I hope my son has an explanation for his behavior. I'll make an update sometime within the following days, but so far all I found out is that my son has sometimes ignored Kaylee for days on end with no explanation, and I haven't heard of it because she's a nervous person who avoids conflict. He also wants to invite a girl over for dinner tonight, which he never does ever, and I find it suspicious, but I'm hoping it's his friends. As for the lying, I have messaged Mike in hopes that he knows something about my son. Alright, you're a terrible mother for trading in loving your son for loving his girlfriend. You have no idea what your son is doing in that time. You have no idea what he's hiding from you or her. You made your own conclusions, and instead of mothering your son, you went and tattletaled on him to his girlfriend behind his back, and you're now keeping it a secret from him. No wonder your son is sneaky and manipulative. He learned it from his controlling mother. I know you probably mean well, but this behavior is disgusting, and you need to self-reflect. Update. My son told me the truth today after him and his girlfriend spoke. He was indeed seeing another woman, and I told him if he was unhappy, he shouldn't cheat. I'm not trading in my son, but this woman was planning on getting off the pill and selling her soul for my son, and I wasn't going to allow her to build her relationship off of a lie. My son and I spoke, and he told me her trust issues and whatnot were too much for him, and I told him I understand. His biological dad cheated on me, and I don't bring it up to him since he passed, but I will not allow a woman to get pregnant and live a life built on lies. He told me he was still in love with her, and he only cheated on her because it was that time of the month, and he only cheats on her once a month. Kaylee decided to give me a call. She talked things out with her sister and decided to ask him. Apparently, he was cheating, but gave her the same excuse he gave me. He said that he's only done it 3 other times. She called me and told me before my son told me, but in his defense, he was busy explaining things to his girlfriend, and now Mike, who he accidentally wrapped into this. It's only 12 in the afternoon, and he wants to tell me in detail after work, which I told him was okay. He told me he was sorry for lying, and I told him it was okay, but it did hurt my feelings. I didn't mention this in the post or to him. His biological father cheated on me before I was pregnant with my son and for the first year of our marriage. I did not want my son to think that was okay. I talked to Kaylee, and she's just head over heels for my son, and said if he promises not to do it again, she would stay with him. I haven't told him that because it's not my business. They can talk about it. My son has sent a few messages since, but he seems extremely sorry. I am a bit disappointed in him, but I think it's because of what I went through and how hard being a single mother was after the man you thought you loved just left. Kaylee said that she would try to be a more attentive girlfriend, which honestly sucks to hear because this isn't her fault. I'm not going to dictate their relationship and tell her to find someone else, but it does shock me that she can forgive him. As much as I want to be mad at my son, I really can't. I've never gotten mad at him before, and I think this situation just brought me back to everything that happened when he was little. I hope my son can learn from this. Tonight when we talk, I'm going to be a little stricter on him, obviously. But again, he's an adult. If he decides he's going to cheat on her, I can't stop him. I really do hope that he learns. So, who was the girl he wanted to bring around? An old friend from high school. He told me they talked a lot and really connected and wanted to be friends with benefits. Apparently, he wanted to explore his options, but he says that he's in love with Kaylee, so I'm not sure what he's going to do. Am I the jerk for telling a friend I don't want her to join my date and I for dinner? I, 26 female, have a friend, 25 female, who I met in college, and although losing touch for a bit after college, I moved to the same town as her 6 months ago for work, and we've hung out quite a bit since then. I have kind of integrated into her friend group, 5 other girls, not including us, although I'm not as close with them as they are with each other, which makes sense, seeing how they've known each other for so long. I was recently on a first date with a woman I've liked for a bit. She's 27 also. We were having coffee at a cafe, and all of a sudden my friend walks up to us and says hi. Not a big deal. I know she comes here a lot, and I introduce them. My friend is super nice to my date. At this point, I hadn't told my friend that this was a date. She knows I've dated women in the past, but I wasn't expecting her to realize this was a date because it could very well have just been a friend. Then she asks if she can join us and starts to pull up a chair. My date is visibly thrown off by this, as am I, and so I say, "Oh, I'm sorry, but date's name and I are on a date right now. I'll see you later though." My friend says, "Oh, I don't mind," and sits down. I reiterate more clearly, "I'd love to hang out another time, but right now I'd like for it to just be my date and I." She says okay and leaves. I thought that was the end of it. Not at all a big deal. I don't expect her to automatically know who I am on a date with or not. I get a call from a different girl in the friend group that night who tells me that my friend called her and she was upset about what happened earlier. So I immediately call my friend and ask if we can talk. She says it was rude of me to brush her off. It wouldn't have been a big deal to join us, and her other friend lets her do this all the time. This gets to me a little bit because I feel like the two situations are only being compared because her friend and I are both not straight. I tell her that because it was a date, it's different and that she can't expect to join me on a first date. She keeps arguing, and finally I get fed up and I snap at her. Be honest, if I was on a date with a guy, you would have taken no for an answer and not had a problem, and then hung up. She has not talked to me since then, but she told me the entire friend group are now split. I know this because the friend who first told me that she was upset, as well as one other girl, messaged me individually to let me know what was going on and that they're sorry about what happened. The messages from the people on her side are making me second guess myself. I do get that I snapped at her on the phone and I was rude at the end of our conversation. I don't think I'm wrong for not wanting her to join us, but am I the jerk for the way I behaved at the end of the conversation? Update. Okay, so the 2 girls who reached out and sided with me just let me know she's been saying stuff that heavily implies that I'm actually straight. So I guess that explains a lot of it. They obviously were not okay with it. They both left the group chat and still want to be friends with me. The other people in our group chat have said nothing to me, and honestly, I don't need the drama. It sucks to realize a friend of mine felt this way about me for years, but I'm glad I at least know what's up now. I think it's weird that she's making such a big deal about not being able to third wheel on a first date. So weird. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. You were on a date and politely told her that she couldn't join you. No reasonable adult would expect to intrude on a first date and get offended when they were asked to leave. If she had a problem, it was entirely in her own head. Am I the jerk for telling the mother of my kid that I don't want her partner at my son's Taekwondo belt promotion? I, 26 male, have a 5-year-old son with my ex who's 26 female. We share custody of him through verbal agreement. We split time pretty equally between both parties, and things have been pretty smooth for the most part. She got a new boyfriend almost 2 years ago now, and it was a weird transition, but I believe for the most part I've been pretty welcoming and cooperative with the whole thing since he is involved in my son's life as well. They have another younger baby now as well. For the most part, we're all on the same page when it comes to my son, and he's a cool dude that I don't have a problem with. A couple months back now, my ex and I put my son in sports, and he's been doing taekwondo. On her days, she or her boyfriend takes my son to practice, and on my days, I take him. Things were smooth. There were boundaries, and we didn't really interfere in each other's days with my son since he loves to spend time with us both. Things started getting a little rocky, however, a couple weeks back when her boyfriend decided to join the same taekwondo my son did. Again, me trying to cooperate, said no problem. You guys do what you think is best on your days. I trust you. I won't lie, it felt a little intrusive for some reason, but I feel like it's something I just have to deal with as a single dad. Things again took a nosedive when on the day I was supposed to take my son to practice, my ex's boyfriend took him instead since he was going there now too. I got upset and said since it was my day, I felt like they stole that from me. I talked to her boyfriend and I told him that as cool as he was, I didn't really want to go see him practicing with my son doing taekwondo class that I pay for, but that on my ex's day with my son, he was more than welcome to take him to practice if she wanted him to. Fast forward to today. My ex messages me and tells me that my son is getting a promotion to yellow belt this Friday and that her boyfriend is also happening to test for his belt on the same day and at the same time. Keep in mind, this is falling on my weekend. I told her that I feel like I need a little space to experience father and son things with my son without any interference and that I felt a little suffocated. She said it's a public space and her boyfriend can be there too as well. I told her I felt my boundaries as a parent were not being respected and I told her I didn't want him there. We went back and forth and got into an argument about it. I don't know if I'm being too possessive with the time I'm supposed to spend with my son or if I'm not being inclusive enough with his now other side of the family, his stepdad now technically. We're friends, but I don't want to be friends with him. Certainly don't want to share my time with my son with him since he can see him on the days my son is with his mom. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. Stop competing with your ex's boyfriend. He apparently is now in your son's life, and you had better find a way to co-parent nicely. Your son will greatly benefit from a cooperative relationship. If you don't, your son will figure it out, and your relationship with him will go south. And the more people that love your son, the better for him. Your son isn't choosing between you and your ex's boyfriend. There's room for both of you in his life. You're the jerk. This event isn't about you, it's about celebrating your son and everyone else who is paying for the class. I think it's weird that the school is mixing ages like that within a single class, but that's sort of beside the point here. Who are you to tell another student they have to miss their promotion just because you're too insecure to see your ex's new partner getting along with your son? If anything, you should be grateful that she's found someone who cares about and supports him, instead of all the crappy stories we see on here with partners who treat them like garbage. I'm going against the grain here. I think, so far, no jerks here. I completely get what you're feeling, and I think you're focused on the wrong thing. Your ex is right. You can't demand that her boyfriend miss his grading process because you don't want to see him while your son grades. Besides it being a public place, who does and does not grade up is up to the instructor. Here's what you should do. You apologize for asking for that. Say you realize that it was selfish and also not what you really want. Then tell her, when boyfriend took son to class, it felt like him taking away your limited time with your son, and that your real concern isn't whether boyfriend is there, but the symptom that because he's there anyway, it's fine for him to step in on your time with your kid, which it's not. Boyfriend won't take time off to help me after a hysterectomy. My boyfriend and I have been together for almost 3 years now. We're both single parents and have chosen to not live together at this time. However, we do have lots of sleepovers on weekends alternating between which house. I was recently diagnosed with a blood disorder and subsequently needed to get a hysterectomy. My boyfriend has a great job with PTO, yet he says he can't drive me to surgery or pick me up or help me out afterward because he has to work. Late last year, he suffered some family issues, and without even asking, I took time off to be there and be supportive. I'm upset that he won't do the same for me. I get the difficulty of being single parents and juggling work-life-home balance, but I feel like he's being inconsiderate and unsupportive by basically telling me I'm on my own for my surgery and he can't show up in any way to be supportive. Am I the jerk? Am I being overly sensitive? Edit. He works for the federal government. We each have a kid in grade school, and he also has a 17-year-old. We live 5 miles from each other. My surgery arrival time is 5:30 a.m., so he can totally drive me, leave his kids at home, then go back and take kids to school, and be back to the hospital in time before my surgery begins. We talked extensively before the surgery was scheduled about the help I'll need, and he said he will take care of me because that's his job as my boyfriend. His ex-wife had a similar surgery, so he's fully aware of how major this surgery is. My surgery needs to happen ASAP, so I don't have much choice in picking a date. Once the doctor told me what day they scheduled it, boyfriend said his day off wasn't until a few days later. He then said there's not much he can do, and he said sorry. I finally told him I was upset about his response to helping me during my surgery, to which he replied about how he has to work and take care of his kids, so he thought I should find someone without responsibilities the day of my surgery to help out. I have no family within driving distance. They're all a plane ride away. I have had several friends step up to help, as well as an ex-boyfriend offer to help, yet boyfriend is too busy. This is something that, if you're a halfway decent person, you might consider doing for a friend of a friend, just because it's the right thing to do. OP. Exactly. I've done the same. I actually told him he wasn't just being an unsupportive boyfriend, but also being an unsupportive friend. Not the jerk, but he is. What kind of relationship do you have where you can support him, but he can't support you? If he's unwilling to help you out after major surgery, what's he going to be like in a real crisis? Good luck. OP. You're right, and this seems to be the dynamic in our relationship. He will be supportive only when it's convenient for him. Is there any possibility that there's a good reason? Like, does he have medical PTSD, or has his mom passed after a hysterectomy, or is he just terrified of blood? OP. Nope, no reason like this at all. There are many great qualities to him. However, he is only an equal partner when it's convenient, and that con was rapidly becoming a deal breaker. His response to my hysterectomy is the nail in the coffin for me. Update. I expressed how I feel to my boyfriend. He gave me a laundry list as to why it's so hard for him to help me out. He has a job and he's a single dad, and he said that people only help when they don't have anything on their plates. But he sees his mistake and will now help me. He's now giving me the silent treatment because I upset him by calling him out. For me, the relationship is now over. Relationship is officially over. He actually broke up with me before I could break up with him. He was so angry about me calling him out and expressing how hurt I was that he ended it. I agree with you all. I deserve so much better. I'm a little mad at myself for putting up with less than I deserve for nearly 3 years. That's directly related to my wounding, and I will take this time to be single and work on myself so I can be the best self in the next relationship. This isn't the first time he's acted like an unsupportive jerk, but it sure as heck was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. Thanks for the feedback, and thanks for being more supportive than my ex-boyfriend. Teacher lost it. So, my best friend loves every time I tell this story, so I thought I would share it with all of you. In high school, I had an AP English teacher who was very opinionated in her grading. If she loved a book the class had to read and you didn't get a good grade on your report when you turned it in. I was an avid reader. In fact, I cleaned out my school library in 3rd grade. Let's just say I wasn't a fan of her literal selections. She was also the kind of teacher that thought her class was the most important one you had. Due to this, the workload was quite substantial. Coming up on our final exam, she gave the class a talk 1 week before the final. She would be weighing our grade for the semester, giving 60% of it to the final. She explained she was preparing us for college. However, since she was giving so much weight to the final, she would give us an opportunity to earn extra credit. For every 4 lines of the epic poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, you could memorize and write verbatim on the back of the test, you would receive 1 point of extra credit. Goody hands time. I had a rough year due to her grading style, so I was getting a B in the class at the time. However, this was my moment to shine. I have a knack for remembering things. In fact, as a freshman, I learned all of the lines for the lead role of Neil Simmons' Rumors 2 hours before opening night due to the lead dropping out. I then performed the role for 3 nights without dropping a line. So this opportunity seemed well made for me, and I wasn't going to let it pass by. I got home and looked up the poem. It was well over 400 lines. I got to work. The final exam finally came. I sat down confidently in my seat and eagerly waited to receive my test. We received our 15-page final and were told that we had 3.5 hours to complete it. I put my name at the top and immediately flipped it over to the back. For the next 8 minutes, I ravenously wrote out 400 straight lines from the epic poem verbatim. That step complete, I decided to look at the questions she intended for us to answer. It was filled with multiple choice, essays, and fill-in-the-blank questions. I took a few minutes to fill in the blanks I knew, guessed at the multiple choice ones I didn't know, and completely ignored her biased essays. Now for the fun part. After a grueling 15 minutes total into the 3.5-hour final, I walked triumphantly up to the teacher's desk. I set my test on her desk and said, "Have a great summer." She said, "Very funny. It's a 3.5-hour final. Sit down and finish your test." I responded, "No, I'm finished. I got over 100. She said, "Let me see your paper." She looked through my test. She saw the empty essays and empty fill-in-the-blanks. Now even more annoyed with me, she said, "You haven't answered half of these. It's a 3.5-hour final. Sit down and finish your test." I wouldn't be denied. "No, I'm finished. I got over 100. At this point, she's getting very upset, and the color in her face is starting to shift. "How do you know you got over 100 when you haven't done half of it?" she demanded. With a big smile, I said, "Look at the back. You said for every 4 lines of the Rime of the Ancient Mariner we memorized and wrote on the back, we would get 1 point of extra credit. You will notice I've written 400 lines from the poem. By my math, that equals 100% of extra credit. Anything I answered in this nonsense is gravy, so over 100. She turned red. Her knuckles went white holding the paper, and she stared at me with hate in her eyes. I said, "Have a great summer," as I walked out, feeling like I had just dropped Mike Tyson with a single blow. I got an A in the class. My final was 145 out of 100. Am I the jerk for canceling our trip after my fiance decided to bring her son? I, 33, male, have been with Natalie, who's 32, for 2 years. We're getting married soon, and she shares custody of her 10-year-old son with her ex-husband. Ever since her ex-husband got sick, Natalie kept bringing her son over more often. Sometimes her mom would take him due to work, etc. We've been having issues because of that, because Natalie has to bring my stepson with us wherever we go. We started going out less and less. Since it's been a month since we've gone out, and since her ex has gotten better, I've arranged for a trip to the beach for the weekend. It's supposed to be a couple's getaway. She was excited for it and prepared for everything. The night before the trip, she comes up to me and says, "Hey, Tom is sick again, and he asked if I can take Taylor to spend the weekend with us." I was gobsmacked. I asked what she told him, and she said that she agreed. She then proceeded to tell me that she'd like to take Taylor with us to the beach. I got upset and told her to not bother because the trip was officially canceled. She looked at me shocked, but I told her she shouldn't act shocked and surprised after she successfully ruined yet another opportunity for us to have quality alone time together. She went on about how she couldn't believe that I would expect her to ditch her son since her mom was busy as well and getting a babysitter wasn't on the table. I just shrugged and told her it was done. Then I walked out. I went with the guys instead, and she's been upset with me about it, saying I could have just agreed to let my stepson Taylor come with us, and we would have at least had some family time together while Tom gets better. She said I was the one who messed up. Am I the jerk? Edit info, because I feel like this has gone into a whole different direction. Folks here need to chill out. Nowhere in my post did I mention not being ready or accepting to be a step-parent. Trust me, I am ready, and so far have been nothing but understanding and patient. I love my stepson and consider him as my own, but, and read this part carefully, my problem is with his mom constantly changing plans last minute and not even asking if that's okay with me. And yes, I had to go out with the guys instead. Didn't know what else to do since she obviously wanted some space from me for the weekend, which is alright with me, by the way. I'm not mad about that at all. I just appreciated if she had been a little bit more considerate of my thoughts and opinions. You're the jerk. You marry a woman, you accept her family. She has a son, that's her family. Now it's yours. Get over it or break up. Those are your options. Oh, for goodness sake. She didn't change the plan because she wanted to. Her ex got sick. Just what exactly did you expect her to do in this situation? Drop him off at the orphanage? Leave him home alone? You're the jerk. You said in a comment that you love her son like your own. Did you call your family to see if anyone could watch him? Yeah, OP, I think you're missing the point on multiple fronts. For one thing, dating someone who has a kid means that that kid is going to have to take priority at all times and will need to tag along. That's the nature of the beast when it comes to dating a parent, especially in this case where it sounds like the ex is like long-term sick and has bouts where it acts up. And OP, if it is how it sounds, and the ex passes, what do you expect is going to happen? When that kid comes to live with you full time, you're not going to get quality time like you think you will. Getaway trips might rarely happen. Having time alone together will rarely happen. Once again, that's the nature of the beast when you're dating a person with a kid. If you can't handle that now, when it's more like a part-time thing, you are not going to be able to handle it all down the line. Get out of this relationship. You're obviously not really prepared for the challenges being a step-parent actually has. OP, you're the jerk for not breaking it off. We haven't been out for a month is normal in parent land. It's completely fine to not want to be a parent at all, or even just not right now. Unfortunately, that means not dating a woman that has a kid, even if she is otherwise the perfect woman. The fact she hoped you could bond as a family tells me she's really hoping you'll grow closer and see him as your stepson, which he will be. Whereas your reaction that you need a break from him after spending more time with him than usual because his actual dad is sick. Let alone that your response to all of this is weekend with the boys, rather than talking through your thoughts and feelings like adults. This isn't going to last. The two of you aren't compatible. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.